Congressional Record published Wednesday, June 11, 2025. Congressional Record, Volume 171, Issue 99, June 10, 2025, combined. The Senate was not in session on June 10, 2025. In the House of Representatives, the session convened at 10 a.m. with Representative Paul Gosar, a Republican from Arizona, serving as Speaker pro tempore. The day featured extensive debate and legislative activity. Members began by recognizing local law enforcement and veterans. Representative Marie Perez, a Democrat from Washington, praised law enforcement agencies for thwarting a potential mass shooting in her district and for arresting white nationalist suspects involved in a military base break-in. Representative Gus Bilirakis, a Republican from Florida, honored World War II veteran Sergeant Charles Martin for his service. The House addressed national issues, including the budget deficit. Representative R. O'Connor, a Democrat from California, criticized the Republican budget plan for increasing the deficit by $2.4 trillion over 10 years and proposed alternative measures to reduce wasteful Pentagon spending and reform Medicare. Representative Buddy Carter, a Republican from Georgia, highlighted local business achievements and tourism in Savannah. Several members spoke on public safety and community concerns. Representative Subramaniam, a Democrat from Virginia, discussed IRS backlogs, criticized efforts to defund the agency, and condemned recent legislation that could leave many uninsured and cut benefits for veterans and children. Representative De La Cruz, a Republican from Texas, celebrated a high school mariachi group's state championship wins. The House also focused on combating anti-Semitism. Representative Hoyle, a Democrat from Oregon, emphasized the moral and security implications of rising anti-Semitic incidents. Representative Mariannette Miller Meeks, a Republican from Iowa, introduced bipartisan legislation to study anti-Semitism and called for unity against hate. Members honored military service and milestones. The U.S. Army's 250th birthday was celebrated by multiple representatives, including Miller Meeks and Baumgartner. Tributes were paid to veterans and community leaders across various states. The House debated election integrity and local governance in the District of Columbia. Under House Resolution 489, members considered four bills: H.R. 884, prohibiting non-citizens from voting in D.C. elections; H.R. 2056, requiring D.C. to comply with federal immigration laws; H.R. 2096, restoring collective bargaining rights related to law enforcement discipline; and S. 331, the Halt Fentanyl Act addressing synthetic opioid trafficking. Debate on these bills was sharply divided along party lines. Republicans emphasized election security and law enforcement support, while Democrats defended D.C.'s home rule and opposed cuts to health care and food assistance programs. The House passed H.R. 2096 by a vote of 235 to 178, and H.R. 884 by 266 to 148. Several members spoke on immigration policy and education funding. Concerns were raised about budget cuts affecting students and researchers, as well as immigration enforcement actions in California involving National Guard and Marine deployments. The House also introduced numerous bills covering veterans' health, environmental protection, financial regulation, and public safety. Members paid tribute to community leaders, veterans, educators, and organizations contributing to social welfare and economic development. Throughout the day, the House conducted multiple recorded votes and recesses before adjourning at 7:19 p.m. In the Senate, the day was marked by committee hearings and legislative activity despite no floor session. Senator Chuck Grassley presided over the opening prayer and Pledge of Allegiance before moving into executive session to consider nominations. Senator Grassley addressed oversight issues including the termination of the Quiet Skies program due to misuse for political surveillance and concerns about unaccompanied alien children placed in unsafe homes during previous border policies. Senate Majority Leader John Thune updated members on progress with the reconciliation bill known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Committee sections from Banking and Commerce focused on eliminating wasteful spending, enhancing border security, investing in telecommunications spectrum auctions, supporting the Coast Guard, modernizing air traffic control, and promoting domestic production of critical materials. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized President Trump's deployment of federal troops to Los Angeles protests as authoritarian overreach, and condemned the reconciliation bill for cutting health care and increasing costs for families while benefiting billionaires. The Senate confirmed several key nominations, including David Fotuki as Deputy Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency, Stephen Vaden as Deputy Secretary of Agriculture, and Andrew Hughes as Deputy Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Senators engaged in extensive debate on immigration policy, focusing on the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program, or DACA. Senators Dick Durbin, Catherine Cortez Masto, Jeff Merkley, Alex Padilla, Jackie Rosen, Bernie Sanders, Susan Collins, and others highlighted the contributions of Dreamers to American society and called for permanent protections and pathways to citizenship amid ongoing legal challenges. A significant portion of Senate debate centered on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza amid the Israeli blockade. Senators condemned the use of starvation as a weapon of war by the Netanyahu government. They detailed severe malnutrition affecting children and families, disruptions in aid delivery, rising food prices, and deadly incidents at aid distribution centers. Calls were made for immediate ceasefire efforts, increased humanitarian aid access, and protection of civilians in accordance with international law. The Senate passed resolutions recognizing Danish Constitution Day, condemning former FBI Director James Comey for inciting violence, honoring the 250th birthday of the United States Army, and designating June 6 as National Naloxone Awareness Day to combat opioid overdoses. Legislation was introduced addressing online service provider policies, mental health telehealth coverage under Medicare, prohibition of Medicaid funding for gender transition procedures, reforms to low-income housing credits, tax provisions related to litigation financing, and other diverse policy areas. Committee meetings covered topics including Treasury budget estimates, Federal Aviation Administration nominations, Department of Interior budget requests, privacy concerns related to genetic data, Veterans Affairs nominations, border management readiness, defense posture in the Middle East and Africa, and oversight of federal procurement processes. The Senate adjourned at 6:49 p.m., with plans to reconvene on June 11. Thanks for listening. The full source material for this summary is in the description below.